Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. Today I found this mannequin and it inspired me. It made me want to do a mohawk with a burst fade. So this is not a haircut that I typically teach on Instagram because I don't do a ton of them. And they used to be super popular, but I have a couple clients who have always done it and I think will always do it because it just works for them. So to begin with, I want to take a section of hair straight down the middle of the head. And this is going to serve as our first guide, the kind of main building block of the entire haircut. What I want to do with this hair is pull it straight and cut a really clean silhouette to the shape that I want my mohawk to come out to. Now this is really like dealer's choice, however you want to do it. Sometimes I square the back over the occipital. In this case, I rounded it because I want it all to stick straight out and I want it to have a nice round shape. But depending on how you want to style the faux hawk, like there's no wrong answer there. Once I have that guide running straight down the middle of the head, I want to pull it about 45 degrees up away from the head and then cut the hair to the right of it, roughly, I guess, parallel to the head. And I want to do this all the way from the front to the back. Now, sometimes, like if you want to do like a rat tail or something, you can have that initial silhouette reach all the way down to the bottom of the head. I only went down as far as I could on this particular head, but I want to make sure that these sections off on the right here are coming off of that guide all the way from the front to the back. I'm not using the previous section as a guide. I'm only using that center strip as a guide for each piece that I pick up. Now on the left side of the head here, you can see at the very tip of my fingers, I'm looking for my guide, pulling the hair 45 degrees out and cutting it parallel to the head. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, go all the way from the front to the back. When I catch myself bending and twisting awkwardly, I'm going to flip my hand over to cut palm to palm. It's much easier this way. If you've been avoiding doing that, like I did for a long time because it was just weird to cut on the bottom of my fingers, get used to it. It's so much better than hurting your back in the long run. Now, I want to blow dry the hair at this point, and what I want to do is find identical points on either side of the head, a little bit outside of the crown or the whorl, and I want to blow dry everything out from those points. So on this side of the head, I'm going to blow dry everything flat to the head, coming straight out from that little middle point that I pointed out there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And what's going to happen is they're going to collide in the middle and create kind of our mohawk. Now, even though this is curly or wavy hair, even if the client wanted to wear it curly or wavy, I would still blow dry it straight like this because this is going to do two things for me. One, it's going to help me to look at the hair from a mile away and see the shape of my haircut. When you leave it curly, it's kind of hard to glance at it and see if it's cut evenly. But the other thing is, a lot of the techniques I'm going to use from here on out are going to require less tension on the hair if the hair is straightened. So when you have curly hair, you have to pull it really straight in order to get a nice straight even cut. But if the hair is straightened, you don't have to put as much tension on it to get a nice clean straight even cut. I actually have an entire video about that if you look for what's it called? It's something like cutting curly hair is cutting straight hair, something along those lines. But point being, I'm checking the cut as I'm doing this. I'm looking at the shape I created as I put all the hair into place. And, the haircut at this point is like 25% done. Like we just roughed it out. But I can see now from a mile away that I roughly have the shape that I want. At this point, I can begin to do my fade. Because the hair is already pretty short on the sides, I didn't bother to debulk it. On this side of the cut, I actually fade from the bottom up, and then on the other side of the cut, I'm going to flip it around and fade from the top down, just to show different ways that I might approach doing it. Now, these mannequins are actually really hard to bald fade because you can't get the clipper behind the ear. You can't pull the ear out of the way. But once I get my bald area in there, kind of a circular shape going through the sideburn around to the back of the ear, I'm going to follow it and echo that shape with my clipper wide open with no guard. And I want to make that section 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide. Once I have that guideline put in there, I can blend out the line between my edger and my clipper by first closing the clipper and kind of bumping the line a little bit, and then slowly opening the clipper as I move the line upward. And each time I open the clipper a little bit and push the line up a little bit higher, it's going to get a little bit softer, a little bit blurrier. And eventually when I get near the top of this section, this guide that I'd put in, we won't have a line there. We're going to kind of make the two disappear. Now, if you've ever cut a head like this, you'll know they are actually quite difficult to fade because the hair is not human hair, but we do what we can. And one of the things that makes it kind of tough and challenging and fun to do a burst fade is behind the back of the ear here, you're essentially fading upside down. And so you find yourself coming at the fade from so many different angles that you are not used to doing a traditional fade. And I think everybody should try to do one of these if you haven't, just for the sake of, I mean, I'm going to say this and it's going to be quite literal, learning how to do a fade inside and out, upside and down, normal, backward, frontward, every different way you can do it. This is just a good exercise to fully understand what you're doing while you're fading. Now, as I come in here with my one guard open, I am watching the color that it produces against the scalp while I put in a new guide, but at the same time, at the end, at the top of this section, I'm being mindful of the shape of the head. One of the things that a lot of people I see sometimes get, I hate to say wrong, is, they'll put in a perfect blend from short to long, but then the blend doesn't fit into the shape of the haircut. So as I'm reaching the top of that section with the one open, I'm being mindful of the shape of the head and trying to leave a little bit of a corner there because I want to make sure that, we're not going to put a void into the client's silhouette here. Once I have that one open set in there, I'm going to go back with a zero guard, starting with it open and then progressively closing it shorter and shorter to blend out the line between no guard open and one guard open. Now, here to fine tune and touch up, which I could do endlessly on a haircut like this, I'm going to keep switching back and forth from one guard to the other. And every time I turn the head and look in the mirror, I see a mistake that I didn't get the first time around. Truth be told, for these videos, I kind of just shoot for good enough. On a real human, I would take a lot longer and fine tune, like for the entire hour. I book an entire hour for a haircut, and I will spend that whole hour fine tuning and detailing. The difference between a good fade and amazing fade is like a few extra minutes of going in and nitpicking the details. Now on this side, as you saw, very, very fast here, I faded from the top down. I do that sometimes if I want to fade very quickly, because rather than putting in a guide and blending out a guide, you just kind of blend as you go. You don't really make lines that you have to erase. Here, now that I'm done with my guarded clipper work, I'm going to go back with clipper over comb and start sculpting the sides of the haircut, the fade, into the length on top. And essentially you can see at the bottom of my comb, I've got a guide coming from where the top of my fade was. And at the top of the comb, I've got a guide coming from my scissor work. And I'm just connecting the dots between the two and trying to make everything look as smooth and even between them as I can quickly here, because again, mannequin head, just trying to cram this in between clients. But I think we did well enough for a mannequin. I'll take it. Now that everything is connected from the top to the bottom, I'm going to go in and kind of fine tune the shape on top. And this is one of those things I was saying is a whole lot easier to do with hair that's been straightened. I can look at this very easily by pulling it up with the comb and see if I have high spots or low spots. And it's a lot easier to fine tune and even out the haircut if it's been straightened. Now, just because I had my clipper out and I was having fun with it, I decided to texturize the hair with the clipper. This isn't something I do, honestly, almost ever with a real human, but it's just a neat trick to know how to do. Similar to what I said about learning how to fade backward, it's like, if you know how to texturize hair with a clipper, then you get it. You get texturizing hair. What I did on that first pass there was with the clipper open because it'll barely cut that way. But once I felt confident, I closed up the clipper, and now you can see I'm going in a little bit more slowly and carefully because with the clipper closed, it's going to mow out like all of that hair really, really quickly. But you can see the result is that my silhouette's been broken up, and now I've got, some texture in there. One thing I like to do with very heavily styled, like blown out hair like this, is before I put in product, I like to move the hair a lot. The more you move it, the more natural it looks, and it won't have that kind of like wig look as much. The product I reached for here is ADH Dry. It's a very matte finish, and it's like a very firm, dry product. It's not going to cause this hair to curl back up again, but it's just going to give it a little bit of that kind of lived-in, messy sort of vibe to it. Now, a cut like this, if it looks decent straight, it's going to look good curly. More often than not, you'll find that any straight haircut will look good curly, but not any curly haircut will look good straight. And so I like to straighten these cuts while I'm working on them because it's like the most unforgiving way to check a haircut. Right at the end here, after I applied product, I noticed a heavy spot on this left side. I went back to fine tune it with a texturizing scissor. That trick is like freaking magic. I try not to do it too much because I feel like it's cheating, but holy, like if you have dark spots in a fade, just go in and point cut with a texturizing scissor. It'll even it out so quick and so easy. So here's our end result. It's it's a burst fade with a faux hawk. I don't do these a lot, but I do them. I have a handful of clients who like rock this haircut. It looks so right on them. And, I just want to do something a little bit out of my norm. I do a lot of like mod cuts and rocker cuts and shags and those sort of things. I thought it'd be fun to just throw it back to the good old faux hawk, which I would say at this point has earned itself a staple as it is now a timeless haircut. Sure, it was definitely a 2005 haircut, but I think we might keep some around forever.